"Don't touch me, the order was only to shoot me." These were reportedly the last words of the woman who was shot publicly for not any crime but for marrying the person she wanted to marry. And this has caused quite a stir worldwide. The recent killing of a young couple in Barkan, captured on video and circulated widely online, has once again thrown international focus on the province, not only for the brutality of the act, but for the ecosystem of impunity that enabled it. The couple, reportedly already married, were executed in broad daylight under the pretext of honor. Among the arrested perpetrators is a powerful tribal chief whose political connections and influence stretch deep into the state apparatus. This was not a private feud. It was a public execution rooted in an archaic social order that continues to operate with official tolerance. A minister from the Balochistan government even confirmed the couple's marital status, further exposing the hollowness of the honor-killing justification. Yet, the killing happened, filmed without fear, under the watchful eye of a state that did not intervene. And if this wasn't enough, the chief minister of Balochistan was seen on TV referring to the chief culprit of this crime as Sahab, despite the host objecting to this term and title. And if this too wasn't enough, the same chief minister made matters worse for the victim's family by claiming that the couple wasn't married. Arrested or not, such statements from the province's chief minister was nothing less than an endorsement. But one must ask, why so? Balochistan, Pakistan's largest and most resource-rich province, remains mired in poverty, suppression, and systemic abuse. A region that should symbolize prosperity and progress is instead a reflection of entrenched feudal power, militarized governance, and widespread human rights violations. This single act of violence reveals a much broader, darker truth. Balochistan operates under a dual system: tribal control backed by state complicity. The region is governed not by civilian rule of law, but by a century-old Sardari chieftain structure inherited from British colonialism. The colonial policy of divide and control forged alliances with tribal chiefs, granting them autonomy in exchange for loyalty. After Pakistan's independence in 1947, instead of dismantling this feudal system, the state absorbed it, empowering Sardars as intermediaries of control. What empowered them more was the military stronghold in the province. These tribal chiefs became the gatekeepers to development, justice, and state presence. In rural Balochistan, they often act as judge, jury, and executioner. The Pakistani military and intelligence apparatus, rather than challenging this order, have embedded themselves in it. Sardars, many of whom sit in parliament or maintain ties with the establishment, offer political allegiance in return for unchecked authority over their territories. This alliance ensures mutual protection and enforces silence. Honor killings, forced disappearances, and tribal executions are not aberrations. They are the logical outcomes of a system built on coercion and control. The state's reluctance to challenge the Sardars is not due to incapacity, but intent. The continued underdevelopment of Balochistan is not a failure of governance, it is a strategy. By keeping infrastructure weak, education inaccessible, and civil society stifled, the status quo remains intact. According to Pakistan's own National Human Rights Commission, over 1,000 people are killed in the name of honor annually, with Balochistan contributing a significant number. These killings are rarely prosecuted. Legal loopholes, such as familial pardons under Islamic law, tribal customs like jirgas, and political interference, routinely shield killers. In the Barkan case, the public outrage was amplified only because the video went viral. Had the execution remained undocumented, it likely would have passed as another invisible tragedy. The entrenchment of Sardari power has gone hand in hand with militarization. The Pakistani military has a massive presence in Balochistan. Under the pretext of national security and counterinsurgency, it has established cantonments, checkpoints, and intelligence outposts across the province. But instead of bringing security, these forces often function as enforcers of the elite order. Reports from human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, detail thousands of enforced disappearances, torture, and extrajudicial killings of Baloch activists, students, and journalists. These abuses are not isolated to conflict zones. Entire communities have been razed or displaced to make way for infrastructure projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, particularly around Gwadar. While CPEC promises to transform Pakistan's economy, locals in Balochistan report being excluded from jobs, decision-making, and even access to basic services. The economic corridor runs through their land, but it remains fenced off both literally and economically from the Baloch people. Despite Balochistan contributing nearly 40% of Pakistan's total landmass and housing vital energy resources, over 36% of the country's gas supply comes from Balochistan. Its people remain the poorest in the nation. Over 70% live below the poverty line. Literacy, especially among women, remains alarmingly low, with districts like Dera Bugti and Kolu reporting female literacy rates of less than 10%. Health indicators are equally dire, with maternal and infant mortality rates among the worst in the country. This systematic neglect is not accidental. It serves to limit political consciousness and resist calls for autonomy. The Pakistani state often frames unrest in Balochistan as terrorism or foreign-backed insurgency. But this narrative masks a deeper, more uncomfortable truth. Rebellion in Balochistan is rooted in decades of betrayal, exploitation, and disenfranchisement. By labeling dissent as militancy, the state justifies the heavy hand of the military and silences demands for rights. Journalists and activists who speak out are routinely targeted. Independent reporting is near impossible. In 2024 alone, multiple journalists covering disappearances and tribal violence in Balochistan were threatened or detained. The press is either muted or forced into complicity. In such an environment, truth becomes contraband. The viral video of the Barkan couple shattered the veil momentarily. International media picked up the story. Human rights bodies demanded accountability. Yet, history shows that once global attention fades, so does political will. The tribal chief may face trial, but the system that empowered him remains intact. Without dismantling the Sardari military alliance, individual prosecutions are performative, not transformative. Balochistan's tragedy is its strategic value. Its geography makes it central to trade routes, its resources make it a target of exploitation, and its people, caught between state repression and tribal tyranny, are the collateral. The state has long preferred to rule Balochistan through intermediaries rather than enfranchise its citizens. Whether through colonial treaties or post-independence patronage, power has always been extracted from above, not given from below. A true reckoning requires more than condemnation. It demands structural reform, dismantling the tribal judicial system, enforcing civilian rule of law, ending military impunity, and investing in education, healthcare, and employment. It requires giving the Baloch people, not just their elites, a voice. This is not just a provincial crisis, it is a national disgrace.